Hey y'all, Southern Style Gaming here, and in today's video, I'm going to talk about probably my spiciest subject so far, as they say. Um, the topic of today's video, I'm going to call them politically conservative minimum wage liberals. Now, what I'm talking about when I say that is the fact that I feel like the discussion about the minimum wage is essentially the reverse of what it should be. You know, the people you'd think would be on the left or on the right, and the people that you'd think would be on the right are on the left. Now, I just want to point this out. I don't consider myself on one side or the other. Personally, I might be a little more right-leaning, but it's like my personal beliefs are, like my opinion on personal rights, I should say, are a little more on the right. My opinion on human rights are a little more on the left. So, just so you know, like, I'm not politically charged in one direction or the other on, most issues. I honestly think when it comes to political parties, we look at them the wrong way anyway. I mean, people look at political parties as if they're like an arbitrary checklist of values, and whichever one you tick more boxes for is the side you're on. When the truth is, political parties are made up of people. They're made up of individuals, and most of those individuals are corrupt, greedy, and power hungry. So, I mean, pick a side, you're going to lose either way. But that's getting beside the point. So, what I mean by the political landscape of this discussion being reversed is that typically when you hear conservatives talk about some topics, especially when it comes to something, probably the topics I lean the furthest to the right on, so I actually see their point, are topics like the First and Second Amendment, the freedom of speech, the right to bear arms. These are things that I genuinely agree with them on. The Second Amendment shall not be infringed. I mean, the Founding Fathers put that in place for a reason. And I agree that that reason has not changed. Most conservatives will cite that as their reason for wholeheartedly believing that for the reason the Founding Fathers cite, that is the reason that the Second Amendment should not be changed or abolished, and I agree. But they will not keep that energy when it comes to the minimum wage, laughably. So why is that? I mean, when the minimum wage was first established, this was New Deal legislation, and the ideal purpose of the minimum wage was to say, okay, what can the average American working, a typical work week, 40 to 50 hours, I'm sorry, I keep tripping over my words, but your typical American working a 40 to 50 hour work week, what can they make and survive? Not necessarily be comfortable, but what can they do to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table? That was the purpose of the minimum wage. It was literally the minimum wage that a person working a full-time job could make and sustain themselves. But that's not the case anymore. The conceived purpose of the minimum wage in a conservative's mind is like, oh, well, a kid working 12 hours a week in high school to get some money for the weekend. That's what the minimum wage should be. But why? I mean, when it comes to the Second Amendment, the original purpose is your entire reason for believing that it is what it should be. That doesn't need to change. So why is your energy any different when it comes to the minimum wage? Like, why is the original purpose of the minimum wage now a problem just because times have changed? I mean, why should the principles of surviving be any different? I just want to know this. Now, they'll argue that, well, there's more costs to living today. Are there really? I mean, yeah, things like internet and all that, they're cool. You don't really need them. So, yeah. Like, why can we not give people who are working hard to put food on their table a living wage? Now, if you really, really want to double down on the high school kid just making money for the weekend argument, well, there's a simple solution to that. Make a minimum wage that's like, I don't know, $8 an hour for minors, and then give legal adults a different minimum wage, like $14, $15 an hour, just depending on your area, whatever is reasonable for someone working, say, 50 hours a week, what they can make and live on reasonably. It's insane how much in general that wages have been lapped by inflation. I mean, this is something that absolutely astounds me that conservatives will talk about, but then when it comes to the minimum wage, they gripe about it needing to be raised, and it does need to be raised, because I live in Tennessee, and we don't have a state minimum wage. We still hold to the federal minimum wage, which has been $7.25 an hour since like 2008, 2009. Like, literally over half my life, it has not changed, even though inflation has absolutely dragged the prices of everything up. Housing is insane. Groceries are expensive. And yet we expect people, say they've just lost their job, they've fallen on hard times. Like, the common argument is that, oh, we'll just go get a better job. Sometimes that's really not possible. Sometimes you just have to take what you can get. And, you have to bide your time to find a good job. Sometimes you're going to be stuck in that position for months. And, why are you punishing them for that? For something that, for all intents and purposes, is probably not their fault. I can't tell you how many times I have seen good workers lose their job because of seniority or something arbitrary. They got cut because, they were the lowest man on the totem pole, even though they did their job well. That's just how the world works. And, conservatives are all about reality checks. And yet, they're not interested in actually keeping people steady in this particular regard. I just do not understand it. And, their argument is, well, you can't make the minimum wage any higher because then those people will be making the same as people doing more dangerous jobs or jobs that you need more training for, more experience for. Well, why not just raise the pay of those jobs too? Like I said, inflation has absolutely been kicking the ass of wages. And pardon me for swearing. I know I've tried not to do that on the channel so far, but I couldn't help but saying that. Why can the wages of other jobs not also go up? It absolutely kills me when they say this. And then it's like, well, oh, the CEOs, the CFOs, the president, the owner, whoever is setting the wages, they're like, oh, well, those people, they have all this money. You're telling me that they can't cut their own salary a little bit to pay their employees properly? Mom and pop stores, I genuinely get it. A lot of them might go out of business, and that sucks. But the economy sucks right now, and people, it's just so ridiculous. And, they argue that, well, those people at the top in the big corporations, again, I don't want to talk smack on any mom and pops organizations because I understand how difficult it is for them because, they're barely getting by as it is most of the time. But, in these big corporations, they have absolutely no excuses whatsoever. They are rolling in cash when you get up past a certain point. Everyone is making six-figure salaries. At a certain point, you've got multiple people probably making 8-figure salaries. And it's just can these people not cut what they make a little bit just to give the people at the bottom a little more relief? What I always think of is Satoru Iwata. For those of you that don't know, he was a president at Nintendo in Japan. And when the Wii U bombed, he literally decided to cut his own salary in half. And he persuaded his contemporaries to do the same so that they could actually pay the cutting floor workers and not have to let them get laid off or not let them have to get their salaries cut because of some arbitrary mistake. Like, I think stuff like that is so inspiring, but when it comes to American business, that's just not possible. For people making significantly more money than Satoru Iwata was making. I mean, he was making $770,000 a year from what I've seen. And he cut that in half. And you know what? Most people should be able to live on what, let me see. What's half of that? Like $38,000 or $385,000 a year? Like, you telling me people can't live on $385,000 a year? Really? I mean, okay, but it just doesn't make sense to me. You know, I'm sorry, I'm sure this probably got under a few people's skin, but I feel like it just had to be said. You know, I know my position on this is probably one that kind of straddles the fence here, but like I said, for the most part, when it comes to things, like when it comes to personal rights, I consider myself a conservative, but I think their take on this particular issue is just absolutely asinine. And I think it's backwards from how they've traditionally viewed things like this. Like, because they've always seen the original purpose of something as needing to be its established purpose going forward. But they don't adhere to that ideology when it comes to the minimum wage. And it honestly feels like cherry picking. And it absolutely annoys me to no end. Now, I just wanted to get that out there. Again, I'm sure I'm going to have a lot of people disagreeing with me. I might have a lot of people agreeing with me. You know, I might have some people somewhere in the middle. They agree with some things I say, disagree with others. Just let me know in the comments what you like, what you don't like, you know. And if there's anything else you want to hear me talk about, you know, if this video does end up getting any traction, you know, I'm really trying to stick to this. I'm really trying to make it work. But yeah, just let me know what you think of it. You know, leave a like if you like the video. Hit that subscribe button. I'm going to try and keep these videos coming every week. And yeah, just have a good day and God bless.